following tape represents 10 years of collecting research and intimate interviews with members of the Grateful Dead and the San Francisco rock and roll community. The first interview is between myself and Pigpen.
Alabama, get away, get away. Alabama, get away, get away. Only way to please me, just turn around and leave and walk away. Alabama, get away, get away. Alabama, get away, get away. Only way to please me, just turn around and leave and walk away. Alabama, get away, get away. Alabama, get away, get away. Only way to please me, just turn around and leave and walk away. Alabama, get away, get away. Alabama, get away, get away. Only way to please me, just turn around and leave and walk away. Alabama, get away, get away.
Education was not necessary because nobody gave
Well,
a
you know, I mean, it's not no big important thing that if somebody's going over here, somebody's going there, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it is now. To me, from a writing point of view, to get it all together.
Yeah.
And once I get it all together, chronicle it.
Then you gotta sort it out.
Sort it out. That's exactly.
Good luck. Of course, you realize that everything I've told you is a lie.
Yeah, pretty much. But my book will be an even compounded lie. See?
Yeah, but the thing is,
But the fact
the
is-
difference between your book and Tom Wolfe's book, for instance, is that you know us personally.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we hope Rolling Stone goes for, you know.
Tom Wolfe don't know us. I mean, I met him, you know, I talked to him, you know, that kind of business. That's cool. I got nothing against
Tom
him.
Wolfe got
In fact, he's a nice cat. Really.
It's real nice.
The thing is that he hasn't lived with everybody that you're thinking about writing about. And you have.
Almost everybody.
Almost.
For instance.
Well, you've lived and talked to me.
That's
quite a
enough.
few years.
That's enough.
And you're tight with Jerry and Phil and, you know, everybody. And it's sort of, I think what it ought to be is like sort of an overall conglomerate of the lifestyles and situations of all the people in our family. And I don't think you should dwell too heavily on details.
No, I'm not.
As
I've
far
got to
as-
get the details down so I can pick what I want.
Yeah, but I don't think you should dwell too heavily on details like dates or years or names or places.
Not too heavily, but I've got to get that all in my head.
Yeah, right.
See, for the chronology of it. It's like overlapping ellipses of years.
If you want dates, details and stuff, talk to Phil.
Phil's one of my last people. Phil is virtually as petrified as a tape recorder. Do you know he's never been interviewed?
Oh, bullshit.
No, Phil has never been seriously interviewed. Like in print, you know, about music, for instance. And that kind of stuff is difficult to get out of Phil. He and I took a psilocybin trip this last weekend, you know, the first one in 5 years.
It seems like
I had a good hit, but still couldn't get it put it in tape. When I get it all together, Phil promises me that he'll sit down and talk to me and get all the dates and facts and names down so that we can
well, that's good because my dates and facts and names are.
But even
At least,
like you say,
you know.
but I agree with you, it's totally secondary. The important thing is the style and to capture the imagery of the fears, the starvation trips, the Paul Spiegel's tragedy, the joys, the sorrows, that kind of, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but, you know, the ups and the downs of it. And,
Well, yeah, but the ups and the downs of it were there and still are. And so, rather than making a documented history of each of our progression,
yeah.
It's not just the Grateful Dead. It's not just
No,
the
it's not.
Warlocks. It's not just the Zodiacs.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just Mother McCree's. It's the whole thing on the way it like came together.
Right.
It's a lot smoother and has a lot less hard edges.
I'm hoping that it will blend in all together like a big balloon or bubble of some kind. eventually. But right now I'm trying to gather facts in the most scientific and almost boring way I can, so that when I can put them on tape and get them back on.
I eventually got the interview with Phil. Of course, I've known him for 20 years. And I had to move in with him for 2.5 years, between 1970 and 72.5, to get the interview. But it was worth it. I think we both learned a lot.
Myself there, and John Winter used to come by every day and bring me $1. He'd hustle up $1 or $2. What he'd do, he'd hustle up $2, one for him and one for me, and I'd eat. I'd get to eat because he'd hustle up $1. I was mostly sitting there trying to write music and.
And he was throwing dollars.
Yeah.
Far out.
And so that lasted till about June '60, and then me and John went to Seattle and Spokane, hitchhiked up there trying to get to Calgary, where he knew a guy. Maybe get jobs in the oil fields or some shit like that. Of course, it was really impossible.
On the road.
Yeah, on the road. That was where I had my freight train experience, man.
A mystical thing beyond, just to keep you going.
Exactly.
It'll never happen.
Just to get away from.
No, it's not true.
No, because
You go
man, it was really
anyway.
bad, man. Because I'd blown it at college, man. I didn't study nothing but music at college, and I wasn't interested in graduating from college or no fucking thing. You know?
Yeah.
And my folks came down to San Mateo, and they gave me a whole bunch of shit. And my dad made me shave off my mustache and all that shit.
Is that right? Yeah, I remember that vaguely.
Yeah, and so me and John just invented this scam on the spur of the moment, just to get out from under. You know? Well, it didn't work, but it was a great experience. It was a great experience, man.
What was the experience?
Well, the experience of being on the road with your buddy.
Yeah.
And being pretty much completely self-sufficient, you know.
Yeah.
And meeting all kinds of far-out people on the road, you know.
Like who?
Oh, we met the Greyhound racing guys, you know, who gave us we made it all the way from San Francisco to Seattle in 22 hours hitchhiking, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And they gave us all a ride all the way from the Woodland turnoff to Yakima, Washington, which is all the way through Washington, through Oregon, halfway through California and Washington. So, and they ran down a whole Greyhound racing scam to us, and it was good old boys on the road time, man.
Yeah.
And I was 20 years old, man, and he'd been up.
Yeah.
But after a while, it got pretty funky, you know.
Sure it does.
And so the best
Hope
part
runs out.
Yeah, right. Well, the best part was when we came back, we couldn't get anywhere from Spokane into Canada. There was no way. So we decided to come back to Seattle, so we could get going to Seattle. So my folks knew some people in Seattle. So the best part was when we hopped the freight from Spokane to Seattle. Man, that was the most magical part. It took us about 1 day, is all. We got on the train early in the morning.
Yeah.
We were like 4:30, something like that. Before
And
the
no
sun even
cares,
got up.
really. Just sit there until the train
Well, right. See, the thing about it is the Great Northern, man. There's a policy on the Great Northern. The guy,
change it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The guy who built the Great Northern, he said they built it, let them ride. And so it's one of the greatest hobo jungle numbers
Oh, I see.
in the whole country, man.
Ah.
It's just a classic one. Peterson can tell you about.
Yeah.
It goes to Chicago, but he went through it in the winter, so it wasn't his boss. This was in the middle of summer, man. And that country up there is fucking incredible. And we got to see all the back parts of it. Going out of Spokane, the railroad curves around the bluff. Spokane's built on a bluff, and there's a great big river below it. And the railroad goes out on the other side of the river, so you get to see the whole panorama of the way
Very
it's laid out.
transcendental.
Incredibly so, man. I mean, I got very high during that train ride.
And there wasn't any grass around it, really, for speed or anything.
I'd smoked grass the first time, I think, that year at Catalpa Street.
But you didn't carry any with you. Like
Shit,
you
no,
do
man,
now.
there wasn't any, man. We spent $10 for 8 joints, man. Bobby
80
Peterson,
cents a joint,
Bobby Peterson and Ken Hayes and myself.
and it wasn't that good grass either.
They got me high, though.
Yeah.
They got me high. Those fuckers got me high. They left me high. They got me high and left me there with my records. They knew just what to do, Bobby Peterson knew just what to do.
Yeah, he's a strange cat. I wish he still do it.
Didn't work with John Winter. John Winter didn't get high.
Yeah, what's the matter, man? That must be a horrible disappointment. It affects a guy as a car repossessor now. And into it.
Yeah, well, he was into speed breaking. But that's a whole long other story.
Hear that, folks out there? Speed!
Yeah, he routed his mind pretty bad with it for a while. But that's a whole long other story.
Yeah.
Tom Constantin was Phil Lesh's closest musical companion from 1961 to 1967 when Tom left the band. Even after that time, Tom and Phil stayed in close touch. TC eventually wound up teaching in Rochester, New York, and touring the world playing his increasingly interesting music. Here's what T.C. has to say about his early associations with the dead.
One of the magical things about music is that you seem to create something that it exists in this supernatural space that is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But like it can be so subtle. Here we are.
Edit out my part.
Okay, no, it was supernatural space being, wasn't that what Mahler, Ives, Scriabin, Obrecht, Bach,
Henry Cusack?
Whoever, you name it.
you know more about.
Sure. Well, like the idea that like the great books of the Western world presents these monuments of literature as being part of a great conversation, like an ongoing stream of consciousness of the collective unconscious.
Exactly.
That you're tuning in on and participating on.
But music can be written that isn't into the Akashic records. Music can be written that is just sort of bebop and to somehow doesn't register on the higher level consciousness. Right. And then there's music that attains to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you attaining? Do you feel like that's one of the strivings
Well, it was a
that
very
did rich?
variable thing. Like it was definitely a thing to be striven for.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always attained. There were so many different elements. Like then there would be nights when one member of the band would get off and another wouldn't.
Or two and not three.
Different biorhythms, and like there were times when I got off. In fact, there were a couple of times. Yeah, well, it was difficult when you're under-amplified and you know that somebody isn't going to like what you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Once at the
It's not a supportive thing.
Oh no! Towards the end, I had as much job security as a Jewish stormtrooper.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
A couple times at the Fillmore East, especially during Dark Star. And once at the gig at the Sacramento Fairgrounds, I remember was rather nice.
Got off on that, huh?
Yeah, there's a certain smoothness of entering the flow. I have bad nights and good nights and shows of all sorts since then. And performers are like the moon,
Yeah, phases.
No, we try not
Nodes.
We try not to moon the audience.
You have a node, a code in your node.
Oh, that's very cryptic.
We got one in. But, I mean, Phil said the influence was Mahler, Ives, Scriabin, Satie, people like that.
Some of those names I would concur on. Mahler, Phil and I kind of, I think, discovered around the same time together. Mm-hmm. Like at one time when we were sharing a house on Eureka Street in the city, I think I had every published recording of Mahler's Ninth Symphony, compared them.
Question.
There were all kinds of people that gave us an early perspective on the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane in the early Palo Alto days. Here's Paul Foster, one of the chief and original Merry Pranksters.
We got to the off stage, huh? Okay, anyway, this night, this we have to come up to. These guys are trying to make a commercial thing go. Okay, there's mainly two groups. There's the San Jose group and there's the Palo Alto group. Now, there's interchange between them, but there's mainly those two. The San Jose group included Pigpen only because he could get it. Only because he needed the dough.
Yeah.
Okay? I paid him $15 a night. And it was groovy. I was getting a good deal. I was getting a very good deal. This chick, she would take care of getting on stage, you see. And it was cool. And then he played his set, which was when people had calmed down a bit, okay?
Yeah.
And it was groovy, and we put the lights low because he didn't like to get up on the stage.
He's straight shot.
He is.
Yeah. He gets better at it, though. See, it's taken him 3 years to do a solo now. He gets up, does his little solo numbers.
Yeah.
Like he used to do.
Yeah. I recall too when he jumped on the in the car with us to go get the acid test bus had been stolen. You know, and looked down.
The bus had been stolen?
Yeah, by Babs and
Babs.
Babs and some of these guys. The sort of inner core maybe if there was one of the pranksters. Let's say the people that Gretchen could afford to turn on me. The ones that she found agreeable. Came down to that problem. Anyway,
Well, I don't
they
understand
stole this. Pardon me. They stole this bus and went off to San Diego, and we wanted to go and get it. We wanted some help, and I knew Big Ben would go if we said we were going to drink wine, and we did. We drank wine all the way there, and we completely fouled up the coup of taking back the bus. And
find the bus?
we got what?
Did you find it?
Yeah, we found it. Yeah, but we couldn't pull it off. They found out about us before we could get it off the ground. Anyway, they had changed the wiring, the ignition under the dashboard, you know.
Was that a for real thing or just a prank?
Oh, it was for real. Well, prank. Their pranks were for real. What do you mean? I don't know. Pardon me. I don't know. Anyway, so we didn't. He gave us good music all the way. The Dead, kept a separate house in L.A. during that test. And if you wanted to get really high, you went over there, because Owsley was usually there with his DMT
and weird shit.
and I'd run up and down the stairs like a mad Steve Calliope after he'd give me that pot.
Yeah, really loads you up there.
Paige Browning of the Prince.
Yes, I know
would go
Paige.
over there. He would go over there with me for the same purpose. We both did DMT a lot.
Yeah.
And we knew we could get it there.
But you'd smoke it, man.
Smoke it, yeah, he'd shoot it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I knew how to smoke so much that I couldn't complete a toke. I know how to there's a way to smoke DMT. Once you learn how,
Yeah.
if it's good DMT, you can't complete one toke.
Yeah, right.
Because there's nobody there to complete it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, right. You're gone, man.
There's nobody there to complete that toke.
Yeah. But you gotta watch out your mattress goes out.
Yeah, well,
Hold on,
or the
step
outfit don't just dangle out of your arm.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I never do shoot for putting some high inspector up in your
For the tape's sake.
No, I never. Once I shot some speed just to see how it was, and it didn't really show me anything. I didn't see no relief. I waved it if I would. A sigh of relief.
Yeah, I feel the same way about sniping, too.
Anyway, let's see. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Let's better start chronologically. I got interested in this offstage.
Yeah.
I also got interested in this girl, B,
Right.
who was a friend of a cousin of a guy who worked with me. I'm a programmer now.
Yeah.
I'm a computer programmer.
Is that what you're doing now?
This is the beginning of '64, let's say.
What are you doing right now?
I'm working as a common laborer with a dolly and a hand truck.
Oh, actually,
And,
not common labor.
Yes. Warehouse.
With French cuffs.
Yeah, I wore this to work with a sweater over it. Yeah, right. Anyway, so, sure, I come on just like what they want. I know what they want. They want somebody who starts working and doesn't stop until he's, until you're okay. Okay, it's easy.
If you couldn't understand everything that Paul said, never fear. Paul not only stuttered and stammered, but he was a student and disciple of Neal Cassady. Neal ended most of his paragraphs with a kind of three-line psychobabble. But Mike Ferguson, at the same time the acid tests were going on, was busily working in Virginia City at the Red Dog Saloon, setting up the Charlatans, the really first organized performing rock band in San Francisco. Ferguson I've known for approximately 20 years. He died in February of 1979. This is an interview that he and I had discussing the great old-fashioned dope dealer, Goldfinger.
likes to be Mr. Big.
Well, he's only got one hand. You know.
Yeah, I know. I was going to design him a hand. I really was.
Well, Goldfinger was an expatriate.
For being an expatriate. I'm all for it. You know.
Yeah, I am too. It just the number of places keeps narrowing down that you could go for a retreat.
Where, for instance?
Oh, I would just imagine, like most places in Europe are pretty hot over Americans as such.
Yeah, only if you're a European American, you see. And you don't know until you go whether you are or not. And it turns out you are. See. I mean, you know, like you know you are, really. I know you are. But I didn't know for sure if I could relate, because the
Yeah, I always like
barrier-
David Niven, you know.
Oh, David Niven. No, I'm talking about lifestyle.
Nice trip. Gives me a nice feeling when you're not trying to burn me. Those fuckers are they just don't understand.
What happened to you in Mexico when you went down? That's a very blank period. I don't know much about what happened to you.
Which time? I went 3 times, actually.
Yeah, you had a fascination for Mexico.
Yeah. I went last year, or a little over a year ago.
No, I mean back in the
Yeah,
when
I
you
went.
dropped out from.
Yeah, that's when I left from here. I'd never turned on or anything before, so I wasn't turning on to grass or anything even when I went down there the first time. That was miserable. Went with the guy Lance from the sandal shop. I don't know if you remember him.
No, I don't.
Braised.
Yeah, no.
Guy used to beat his old lady up all the time. Well, the 4 of us just took off one night in a mad flame.
Yeah, I thought that's how you disappeared.
I used to go with that chick Loxy. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember her.
The working man's dead thing is nice.
Yeah, that's tasty.
Yeah, because the smokestacks in the back are all penciled in.
Yeah,
They're
right.
bashed in.
This thing, you probably would dig this thing that we're doing for the new riders.
I really like to see what you have.
I don't have anything right now. I just got, well, it all stems on the actual putting together of the thing with photographs, which he hasn't taken yet.
Well, no, but you know, the truth is they haven't got a contract yet, so what they're trying to do is put together a presentation
Yeah,
package.
it's a comp, and that's what it's for.
Yeah.
We're trying to get some bread just for doing it,
You'll
presenting them with the comp. But
Okay.
it's going to be like when the album's folded over.
I can talk to Marmaduke about it. I think nobody's talked to Marmaduke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
can
we've
liaison.
talked to him about it,
Yeah, I
maybe,
know,
yeah.
but can I Cosmic Cat. Do you still have any of those old drawings?
No, those weren't my idea anyway. Those were Ed Turner. Do you remember Ed Turner?
No.
He used to work at Coffee and Confusion in the kitchen.
Tall, thin guy?
No, he was a little spade cap, little
No, I
tiny
don't.
guy. He's now working with some offshoot of the committee. But he always wanted to be a cartoonist.
But you did the Cosmic Cat cartoon.
Yeah, right. But with him, we used his ideas. You know, and we sort of did a little strip that we didn't publish or anything.
Well, some of it was your ideas too, I know.
Oh yeah, well naturally, you know, there was an intermingling of ideas.
Do you have those? He has those. Oh, I'll say.
God, who knows what happened to him? That was a long
Don't
time
you
ago.
save? I thought you saved everything. I was so happy to see all the Art Nouveau because I figured you were a great collector of old
Well,
memorabilia.
I do save some things. A lot of things I regret having given away, especially drawings and art.
Oh, I could use some of those for the book too, man.
Yeah. We did a strip at the same time called Surplus. It
Yeah.
was a knight.
Yes,
And
I
there were
remember that.
weird characters in there. Muggles, the magician.
Yeah. No, I didn't. But you know, you should resurrect some of those ideas too.
Well, I could probably...
Cartoons are
Larry
coming in.
Ed Turner. He's still around.
Who promoted the California Hall dances? Not
They were
George.
Usually all of them... Oh, not George. He didn't promote them. It was usually each dance was promoted by somebody different, forming some little group.
And the family hall sort of sprung out. The family dog sort of sprung out of the California Hall manipulations, right?
Well, the family dog started up actually while we were still up in Nevada. I mean, the idea of
The idea of it, yeah. They came down to the inn room where the warlocks were. Wanted to
Probably
sign
did.
up the warlocks.
That was Luria.
Yeah.
And Ellen, the chick on the wall in there.
Did you ever meet Paul Foster,
I'm not
the
sure.
Merry Prankster?
Mm-mm.
The guy with the... Did you see Woodstock?
Mm-mm.
Did you ever go out to the
I
Inn
met
of
the
the
Merry
Acid?
Pranksters, they came up to Virginia City on the same night that we were all packed and ready to leave after being there for 4 months.
Appropriate time to come. The Merry
God,
Prankster.
yeah, it was very strange. It was about the same hour they arrived in town in this incredible bus, you know,
Yeah.
and it looked so far out in that...
And do you know who was on that bus when they went up that way?
God, I don't know.
Virginia Good.
Was she on that bus, really?
She remembers it. She told me. She went up there. She says, "You know what, Ike? We went up to Virginia City, and remember Mike Ferguson was there. I remember him." And I says, "Jenny, you know, he doesn't even look the same." She said, "Yeah, it's him. I already saw. He has some beard and all that, man."
Far out, yeah. We just kind of. It was too.
Okay, I was
yeah.
driving. I'm digging this, man. I was driving her down to Boulder Creek on Skyline Boulevard because her dad lives down in Boulder Creek. And there it was, over there in the corner, getting gas in La Honda.
No.
And she said, "Stop the car, stop the car." I said, "What? Wow, there it is, man, the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bus.
The bus, man. Cling, cling. I says, "What is this?" And there's Roy Sievert. And I knew him from Palo Alto. So I went over there, and he was fixing a generator. And they were trying to get this show on the road. And there was a couch hanging over the back.
Uh-huh.
Where everybody used to sit on the couch, hanging out the back, and then the police made them put the couch inside because you couldn't have anybody hanging out the back.
No.
But the turret, you could live in the turret. It was okay to stay up there. Yeah. She said, "I gotta go." And I said, "Man, these people are weird now. I'm telling you, you know." And she had just had a little bit of a nervous breakdown, one of her 19 or 20 nervous breakdowns, right?
No.
And I said, "Now, Jenny, don't go on that bus, man. They'll blow your mind. But, you know, talk to them. But don't go very far. Like, go to Oakland with them or something and get off and take a bus." She said, no. I said, "We ought to take you down to see your dad, you know." Go. "No, I want to go." She was gone.
And that was the same trip?
That was the same trip, and she wound up seeing you in Virginia City at the end of it. They went up the Feather River. They followed the Feather River. Oh, yeah.
We just embarked on at that point on a trip.
Now,
There
the synchronicity of this whole scene is almost divine. I mean, it's the probability of that kind of synchronicity happening that often with those kinds of people can only be explained by one hypothesis, that there were only about 1,000 of us.
God, I feel so important.
There were only about 1,000 people around here, you know. They were really turned on an inner level, you know. There was a lot of turned on people, but like people that were really doing the number, you know. And all those people it turns out, what I'm saying is they all got the same flash simultaneously. Like a great electric cloud came down on a certain number of people and lifted off and sort of put a mark on so many people because they flashed on one thing, you know. Probably the Kennedy assassination is a big factor in it.
Yeah.
Next, we have a very brief interview with Gary Duncan of Quicksilver Messenger Service about the founding of Quicksilver, recorded in Honolulu, Hawaii. Bad acoustics, but Nicky Hopkins is playing piano in the background in the studio.
And then I got in the band that Greg Elmore was in. And got really tight. And that band broke up, and we went to San Francisco, and we were about 18.
Nicky Hopkins in the background.
Where were you from? Modesto, California. And he was from Merced. And we went to San Francisco and got turned on to LSD. And pot. And then we ran into Cipollina and Jimmy Murray right after our first acid trip. We were trying to start a band, but they weren't too sure about us. But they kept coming over and checking us out every couple of days. And David was in a joint. And as soon as David got out of the joint, we played together, you know, and it was groovy. And we were all Virgos, you know. And up until then, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know I was a Virgo. And then we just started playing together, you know.
So for first San Francisco.
Yeah.
Were you involved in any specific crowd? Any specific house?
Yeah, me and Greg used to live in this chick's basement over by Fisherman's Wharf. It was terrible. The sun never shone in it. It didn't have any windows. There was water dripping all the time. It was really shitty. And then from then, after we got together in the band, we moved over to Larkspur, and this old house built up on some pilings out of the mud. We lived there through the winter.
Okay, that's the end of the tape, side 1. This is a 60-minute cassette. Copyright Dead Archives, 1980. Hello, welcome to Dead Archives. The tape you're about to hear is Rapper's Delight. This tape is designed to bring to you the essence of the oral tradition of the Northern California rock culture through conversations and recorded interviews from the 60s and early 70s. The peculiar things about the following tape is that many of the people you will hear are now dead. So it's of an importance that these be recorded and so stored for future reference. The following is an interview with Jerry Garcia, recorded live. It's probably the most significant historical interview in that it goes into great detail about his basic life philosophy.
Well,
Garcia is asked how he communicated with his mother, and this interview was done shortly after her tragic death in an automobile accident.
I thought you did it okay, you know. I was never able to finish that idea, but I don't feel that really our relationship, I don't feel as though it's gone forever. I feel as though more like that was underlying throughout, you know what I mean? She always respected what I did and liked the fact that I was a musician and liked what I was doing and so forth, and she never judged me, even through things like involvement with drugs and stuff like that. You know, she was always pretty good, and so I don't feel really too badly about it, but it's a shock, you know, like those things, like things like that always are. And but on another level, of course, it's interesting how once your parents are gone, you know, like the foundation, they're gone. You know, that's what you plug into. Yeah, it's strange. On some levels, it's liberating. On other levels, it's very sad. You know?
Yeah. Jerry, one thing, I have to make this comment. It may sound like a departure from where we are, but I think people would expect Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, who does not appear on television, they would expect, on meeting you this close, a much more sort of, I don't know, far out, flamboyant, heavy dude type, swinger. I don't know. I think we have stereotypes of musicians and stereotypes of certainly the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane. That there's a whole mystique about the Dead and about Jerry Garcia, and you're very real, very believable, very normal. Dare I say? Am I blowing your whole image?
No, I don't think so.
Are you conscious of that? A kind of disparity between who you really are and what people expect of you?
Well, sure, because it works both ways too. I mean, on some levels, the media relation to the reality it's always wrong. I believe. I believe it never is very accurate because of just everything. Language itself is one heavy bias. So it's. But I've been described both ways, more radically than I am, more conservatively than I am. So there's a discrepancy on either level, you know what I mean? I don't really feel that. I don't relate to that. For one thing, I sort of taught myself that early, not to believe that that's who I am, That's not me.
Yeah.
And so I don't relate to it. And luckily, the kind of fame that I'm involved in, whatever such as it is low enough of a profile so that I'm not constantly being reminded of it.
People don't run up for autographs and
no,
so forth.
No, it's much cooler than that.
And yet people talk about, and maybe there's a difference between you when you are on stage performing, communicating musically, and you sitting here, as you said, using words.
Right.
Because people talk about the saint-like quality. I don't mean it in a negative way, but there is an aura about you, whether you're aware of it or whether people put it there. And it's like the thing you were saying before. I thought very meaningfully. I said to you how my churches are empty. I need this, Gracie, to reach young people.
Right.
You don't. You can go to Winterland and fill the place up with tens of thousands of young people. And you said, yeah, and I feel responsible.
Yeah.
I am concerned about that. I think it's that kind of a leadership, not an egomania, but a concern. hey, here I am because of my talent, because of timing, because
Luck,
of any
whatever, yeah, right. And
here I am, and what am I? You know, I know that you put words down and say, well, words are often lies because you can never communicate the whole feeling, the whole meaning, and music does it better. You've said that many times because it's freer, it's more open, and it allows for people to come in at different levels, from different backgrounds.
Right.
So, but you are communicating something.
Well, I try to make an effort to, certainly. You know.
What is it? Can you describe that or talk about that?
Oh, well, it's difficult since the things that concern me tend to be not verbal in nature. You know, they tend to be experiential. The fact is that most of my life has to do with certain kinds of experience that have been repeated, you know, like many times. The high energy experience of playing for a large body of people and for the purpose of reaching some level, you know. And so that energy and that thing is something that I know about, but I can't say what it is. So what I talk about, if I can talk about things, I try to make it so that what the content of what I'm saying is, you know, reflects something that I know on that level.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it, so I have to not say it. You know, I have to talk around it or something. You know.
Your music does that too, doesn't it?
Right.
You sort of throw out little snatches, little phrase, thought things. There isn't a whole neat package of it.
No,
It's just
there isn't.
Bother you.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Right.
You mean I have to think? I have to...
Yeah, I personally feel that people like that. I mean, I know I do. You know, it's on some levels it's all very simple. On other levels it's difficult to talk about.
Yeah. You're very conscious of... I think the Grateful Dead probably have done more... Certainly they're one of the most generous major groups in the country. They've done more free concerts and spontaneous gigs and fundraising things and stuff. But you're very much aware of this continuous sort of feed and be fed, the interaction between you and the audience, which you say can't be captured, obviously, in a record or even in a film. You're doing a film now, on the last 5 shows at the Winterland, and to see, I mean, maybe some experience can be communicated in film as it can in television.
That's why we tried it. You know.
Yeah.
Can it happen? You know, maybe it can, and maybe it can. You know.
Yeah. it might work. Now, it's not working too well on TV. The midnight specials and so forth.
No,
even with all their cameras, you can't.
No, I think it reduces it too much. You know, that particular kind of experience, I think it just reduces, makes it too small. You know. That's one level of it.
The hard thing is that you don't get any kind of feedback then, because you're not into fame and money.
No, but I'm into a more direct kind of feedback. I like to be in a situation where I can really talk to the people who like our music, you know, and we have a pretty good two-way flow that they write to us pretty freely, and by and large, they're pretty articulate. They know what we're doing, and we recognize them by the way they speak to us. You know what I mean? So we know that what they're talking about is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that we know we're aware of that reciprocal thing.
That's amazing. I know you send out your mailing list of 35,000 or something, and you send out a preview, what are they called, sampler, you know, audition copies of the albums before they of the records. I think
and they send stuff to us too. You know, they talk to us and tell us about what it's like.
That's a big part of you, that collaborative effort, because I know in the beginning your music was eclectic. You started with the jug band kind of bluegrass sound, banjo, guitar, and got into the whole thing, blues and jazz, and which is a great thing. And you kind of explored all those ramifications, and now you're into a whole new form for creating. You do listen to at all different levels.
Right. Well, it's because it's more interesting from the standpoint of a person who's involved in lots of different kinds of energy. That is what's interesting to me, and on a certain level, that is what I do. Also, I deal with lots of different kinds of energy, and I feel that I'm essentially someone who works into things. You know, rather than I'm not an artist in the solo or in the independent artist in the garret mold. You know, I'm not that sort of person. Right. I'm part of dynamic situations, and that's where I like it, and that's where I feel I function best. And the Grateful Dead is a collection of people, or all people who've come to that idea, you know, all through various different ways, and it works. You know, That's really all we have to say about what we do. You know, if you want to see it work, if you want to see a situation work that doesn't have any leader, that doesn't have any plan, or doesn't and is utterly formless, really, from moment to moment, then you know, you don't have to guess about whether something like that will work.
Yeah.
We have it, and it's working.
Yeah.
And you know,
How can you do that without bumping egos?
well, we bump egos. But I think, everybody has learned that the best things happen when everybody agrees and feels that that's the right thing to do, rather than one person has an idea and everybody else feels a little funny about it. So we go on that level of, if somebody doesn't like it, we don't do it. And we've learned to trust each other after a long enough time of fiddling around with this idea. We've learned to trust each other to the point of saying, well, it's, you know, if the president doesn't like it, it's no good.
Yeah.
And that idea comes from the idea, basically, that no idea really makes it if you can't include everybody in it. If you can't bring everybody.
Oh, that sounds like marriage.
A good marriage or a good family.
Well, I think it's just a good way for people to work together.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, it depends on what they're doing. I think you'd probably run into trouble if you were trying to build a bridge. You know, you can't improvise on that level too well. But I believe that if you had people that were all really skilled at that particular world, that they could do it. Because on another level, I mean, on the mathematics level, architecturally, musically, that's what the Grateful Dead does. Is we're creating architectures. You know, architectural models, if you will, of kinds of music. And they work, and each person adds their own personality to the whole thing, and it works. You know, somehow. And I think that everything could be that way, really.
Where do you go to prime the pump? Where do you go to get your spiritual energy?
Enthusiasm that you were almost said, but then enthusiasm. I mean, the thing of feeling good about it is like really, as far as I'm concerned, that's the gold in the situation. That's the payoff, if there is one, on the level of why am I involved? I'm involved because I like it and because it feels good, and the enthusiasm of feeling good about something. You know, I think that's the most important thing about it is, you know, on a personal level, like what do I get out of it? That's what I get out of it. And by that I just mean that I think that it's a good thing to have some one thing that you can work on a more or less a daily basis and be able to see improvement in your own terms that is a result only of your own energy being put into the thing, you know what I mean? It's the kind of thing, anything that you decided to do, if you did it every day and it was something that you could notice yourself improving, even if it was whatever it was, you know, cat's cradles, you know, crossword puzzles, prayer, right, whatever. Sure, they're all forms, and and I think that the things that keep opening in front of you, that the more you do them, the better you get at them. You know, that idea, I think, is really a nice idea to have in your life. It keeps you centered to something, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have to be worried about how you're being judged in some absolute sense, but you can judge your own progress on a day-to-day basis. And when you're doing something like that, you know when you're off, and you know when you're on.
You're on.
Pigpen's next.
A bus driver in San Francisco. That was a couple of years ago. But I only got another day's got busted and everything. There was, the thing with the chateau was there was some chick named Kathy who used to always hang around there. And the standard answering procedure of the telephone at the chateau was you pick up the phone and say, chain 3, Kathy ain't here. Click.
What's chain 3?
There was 3 3s in a row in that phone number.
Oh, I see. 333, 3333 or something like that.
Oh, there were 3 3s in a row. I don't remember the number, but there were 3 3s in a row.
So Pigpen was very young at the time the Grateful Dead started. Phil and Jerry knew each other indirectly, and the Chateau crowd were hanging around up in Palo Alto above what is now the Stanford Linear Accelerator. It was an old house run by an older guy that liked to play poker named Frank Seratoni. He gave cheap room and board to a lot of people that came in and out of that scene. Pigpen and Jerry lived there for a while.
Jerry played for the first time in...
No, Hunter and Kissy. Hunter lived there. Jerry lived there. Danny lived there. Who else lived there? Willie Legate lived there. Just a bunch of the people that we know, used to live there. I used to just sort of...
Well, I never told you a story about he used to come in on Saturday and say, I'm here, where's the drinks? And the cops came looking for her, and she got up in a tree and pretended she was an owl, and the cops didn't find her.
Give me a hint about your name. Sue Baker?
Yeah,
Mother Mayberry.
Yeah.
Blonde chicken, big tits.
I don't know.
Yeah. She used to be around a lot. And she'd come around. We had parties over East Palo Alto all the time, over at Pogo's place and all that. And she'd be around.
Phil got into some mysterious trouble one time down there, and he came and asked me about what he should do. Some chick, I don't know, it was Donna Dowd.
Donna, yeah, right. Donna Dowser.
Well, it was some chick that was like underage, like she was
Yes,
17.
that was Donna Dowser.
And her dad owned an ice cream store, or a soda fountain, or a drive-in. And Phil used to take her there or something like that.
And her father said,
Father said, who's that? And I don't know, it was some weird thing, but anyway, the next day, Phil had the police after him, and he came to my house, and now, this is very few people know this, but he came to my house on the lam, like on the run, you know. There was a warrant out for him, you know.
get off that cord there, Calhoun.
Calhoun, you're going to shock your shoes.
No, he's not going to shock himself. He's just going to rip the cord out the back of the thing. No, I made it thing. That was during the Boar's Head days.
Ron Albin and the Boar's Head,
Yeah,
right? In
well,
San Mateo.
Right.
Okay.
With George the Beast.
George the Beast, what was his last name?
Howell.
H-O-W-E-L-L?
I don't know how to spell it. Just George Howell.
Okay, well, I think George Howell was later responsible for getting together the charlatans, right? Wasn't he the same George that lived with Janice over on Page Street? Not 1090 Page, but another place on Page.
No, that was George Hunter.
George Hunter.
Right.
Well, he got into the charlatans. George Hunter was actually...
Well, he was one of the instigating members of the whole group.
But he actually couldn't play a note. They told me.
George Hunter?
Originally.
He can play.
Could he?
Yeah, it wasn't... No, but George Howell, this was a long time ago.
George Howell and Ron Albin.
This was when...
At the Boar's Head.
John Wheeler.
Yeah.
Me and him have the same birthday. September 8th.
1940 what?
I'm 45 and he's 42, I think.
Well, he's older than me.
Yeah, he's a couple, 3 years older than I am.
Interesting.
You know, John McCool.
John McCool, yeah, but you see, he was like, when Phil and I first met him, he was at Primrose Bookshop. He let us steal books out of there, right? And he was only 17 and we were 19 and we were big shit. You know, he was a little punk, you know. It was really weird.
You know, you sure you're not talking about Mike? His little brother.
No, Mike Winter I met later. After during the Warlocks days, I met Mike Winter.
Right, at the interim and that.
At the interim and all that shit. No, this was much earlier. John Winter used to sell books. He used to be a clerk. He used to have a big black Pontiac or something like that, like a six-wheeler. And he sold it to Phil for $50. And it never ran. And, it was really an elaborate trip. This was 59 and 60. Now, it's weird that we never met before that, you know, because... I guess it's because I was some kind of a snob and I never wanted to go down there. I went down to a party at Perry Lane at Homer Lane one time.
Oh, yeah.
Homer Lane was really where the action was. But Perry Lane is where the older guys live. Like
Right, what was that guy's name who had the goatee and looked kind of a satanic...
Roy Seabird.
No, not Roy. I'm not talking about Roy. Huh?
Page Browning.
No, not Page. I know all them guys.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm talking about another guy who used to live next door, a couple of doors up on Perry Lane from Kesey when he was living there.
Did you ever go there and visit?
To Kesey? Yeah, that was when Roy Seaburn was living in the barn.
Right.
Well, not the barn, the garage, I mean.
Yeah.
No, in front, right next door. There was a guy up the street whose name I can't remember, but he looked like a kind of a satanic-looking cat. And he was older and he had like a goatee and it was sort of, he had a little gray in it. And he was like a professional student at Stanford or something like that.
That's where they all lived, up at Homer Lane.
Really? Yeah, Perry Lane was really fun. It was a good trip. And drinking, Roy Seaburn used to make up some kind of wine. He'd take some kind of white wine and put grape juice in it. It wasn't shake-em-ups like WPLJ or anything.
No.
It was some other kind of stuff that he used to concoct.
Yeah.
And it was pretty weird. Me and the Walker would just go up there, bring a guitar, just sit around. You know, Kesey's house a couple times was like just right. You didn't even have to go across the street. You just.
That's the first time in my life I ever saw. Yeah, it was in the same lot almost, you know. That's the first time I ever saw anybody laid out on marijuana and booze. I mean, passed out.
Who's that?
Some chick, I don't know. I went up to, Phil took me up to a party up there one night, and they kept saying, well, who lives here? Well, some guy's writing a book. I said, oh, what's the name of his book? And they said something about a cuckoo. And I laughed. I thought that was very funny.
You know, it was during that time, you know, that I met Keithy and, you know, all that. And Tom, he's married to Arn Gallian's sister.
I don't think I need that information. Anyway, it's on the tape video.
Anyway, first time I went to Keithy's house, I don't think Tom and Sue were married yet. And they were just sort of off and on. And Sue is a fox. And she was dancing, everybody drinking wine and dancing and carrying on. Never Sue. What do you want?
Never Sue dancing drunk after I came
Oh, I don't know if she was drunk or just dance, you know. And everybody, Keithy was there, man, and Roy was there, and me and Novakovic, and who knows who else. Paul Mittig, I think, was hanging around. You know, all the old school guys. And I just had a flash because she looked really good when she was dancing. And then Tom and Sue and Arn lived over on Manalto in Malapara. Just a few blocks from Troy Weidenheimer. You know Troy?
Yeah, sure know Troy.
Just a little ways from there.
I never went to his house, but I know he ran Dan Williams for a while. Was working.
Oh, I worked in a band with him.
Troy?
Yeah.
What band?
Zodiacs.
You had a band called the Zodiacs? That's a little known fact. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, Troy was like lead
This was
guitar.
a couple years before the Warlocks, though.
Yeah. It was when I was like 17. You know, 16, 17.
You were doing singles in coffee houses mostly, right? By yourself.
Well, in the Zodiacs, we were playing beer-drinking Stanford fraternity parties.
Oh, yeah?
And Troy played like lead guitar. His old lady Sherry played rhythm guitar. Jerry would occasionally play bass.
Garcia?
Yeah.
Okay. Like string bass, stand-up bass?
Electric bass.
Electric bass, is that right?
And Ron Ogborn would play bass occasionally, or either drums. He'd double on bass and drums. And I'd sing and play harmonica.
Now, this was before...
Way before the Warlocks.
Oh, I know that, but this was before Offstage?
Before the Offstage?
Yeah, and the Tangent.
Yeah.
Before that, a year before that even, maybe. Like
Sure, because that was like...
19... okay, you were 17. What year was that?
I don't know. Give me a slide rule.
You were born in 1945. So it's 62.
During that whole offstage Tangent period, it was sort of an amorphous trip because we were playing during the Chateau period.
Yeah, it was all the same thing.
During the Chateau period, right. And the Zodiacs, you know, we were playing then. And then after that, after the Zodiacs, we started into the Jug Band.
Mother McCree's.
Right.
Uptown. Now, what was the Asphalt Jungle Boys?
The Asphalt Jungle.
There was something about Asphalt Jungle something or other that was a band that you weren't in, I think.
It was an offshoot of
Mother McCree.
all of our friends, you know.
Matthews and Marmaduke and all those kids.
Right, just a bunch of guys.
Yeah, okay.
As far as I know. And so anyhow, we used to play gigs like Stanford fraternity parties, right?
Yeah.
They'd rent a place like up at Searsville Lake. They'd rent the men's dressing room. It was just a big,
huge
stone room, you know, with benches on the sides, you know, and showers and
yeah, I know where
pissers and stuff.
Searsville Lake is.
And so me and Troy and Sherry and Ogborn and maybe Jerry or what was that guy's name? It was another guy who played bass occasionally. It was sort of like mostly me and Troy and Sherry. And
did Dana Morgan play in those things?
No. And no, he started after we started practicing at his store. But that was after the Warlock. I mean, after the Zodiacs. And so it was mostly me, Troy, and Sherry. And Ogborn either played bass and drums, and there was this other guy who would play bass sometimes, and occasionally Jerry played bass.
Would Jerry play guitar then in those days?
Not with the Zodiacs. He'd play bass occasionally.
Was he playing the guitar at the time, though?
Oh, he'd been playing guitar, years before that.
This was before he met Sarah, though, right?
Oh, yeah, years before that.
Okay, 62.
And so, we got these guys, these three black guys. This guy, Don D. Great. That was his last name, D. Great.
Don the Great.
D. Great.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he had a couple of cats with him, and we'd play for house parties and stuff, and they'd sing and do like little, like coaster kind of trips.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the lead singer.
R&B.
Yeah. And then decided to change the name to Dr. Don and the Interns. And so, we were working with them off and on for a while. We used to play we played a setup club up by Playland, and we played mostly house parties, college house parties.
Well, a setup club by Playland, that wouldn't have been the,
It was an upstairs place.
not the Family Dollar.
No. But it was an upstairs place. It was a little south of the Family Dollar. So we did that. We backed up Don and everything. They do coasters routines and...
Roberts on the Beach.
Roberts?
Roberts on the Beach is the name of the place.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name.
I think it's Roberts on the Beach.
But it's an upstairs setup club.
Well, when did you first go up to the Heat Estuary?
Well, what sort of started out was when the Grateful Dead happened. Sort of got together, and we decided it was going to be the Grateful Dead.
That was later. That was 65. Late.
Yeah, it was later. Yeah.
Early 66.
So me and Bill had a house on, I think, Pope Street in Menlo Park.
Kreutzmann.
Yeah. And
He had an apartment on the freeway.
yeah, but this was a little bit later.
Later than that.
Yeah, the apartment on the freeway was when we were playing at the Inver.
Right.
Okay, and then he got a house.
Yeah.
And then we decided, well, what the fuck, let's move to L.A. So we went to L.A. And I moved down to my parents' house, and
The acid test out in L.A.
Yeah, it was when we got hung up with the acid test and started, moving around and doing stuff instead of being, like, stationary. And non-geographically productive.
Yeah.
And so me and Bill made a couple of runs between L.A. and the Bay Area, to bring his stuff down. We all got a mattress and everything. We moved into the place in L.A. Started trying to promote our own dances and that kind of stuff. Which worked okay, except the cops ordered us to take down the posters off the telephone poles we nailed them to.
Oh, well, this was Danny and Rock kind of thing?
Yeah, right during that period.
Yeah. Well, that was later, yeah.
That was the formative part of the Danny and Rock scene.
Okay.
And, what happened from there,
Well, see, I knew Danny and Rock at San Francisco State, and many a time when I came in there with pictures of the Warlocks, but Danny and Rock would be sitting around looking at them. Didn't even know you guys. So like that whole thing, see, that's not what the book's about. Right at this point, I'm writing the book in two halves. I'm going to write the 64 to 66 scene after I get the 60 to 63 scene straightened out, because the really formative period, the whereabouts of everybody. Okay. Gert Chiarito's Midnight Special.
Right.
That was the name of it.
That was the one. Right, and me and Jerry, I played harmonica and Jerry played guitar.
Is that the one that Phil did the engineering on it for him?
I don't know if he did it or not.
Well, here's Phil's story. He came down there, he saw Jerry play, and he immediately went out and he had Tom Constand with him. When he went out to the car, and Tom got out this big old, I think he still has it, that big tape recorder that he's got, and they recorded Jerry right then and there, and he took the tapes over to Gert, and Gert dug him, and next week, Jerry was on the show, and then a week after that, you and Jerry, I think, this all went down.
Yeah, because Jerry wanted me to play harp,
Right.
I just showed up and let's play a little stuff.
Yeah. Well, those tapes would be part of it.